Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Since there are some new faces here, they may have missed last night's English session. I'll just give a 3 or 4 minute summary of what we were discussing, and that is the concept of i'tibarat. And i'tibarat loosely is translated as mental constructs. And what that means is that man, like with any other existing being, has an end goal, has an objective, a purpose. So the plants, animals, stones, everything is moving. There's nothing static in this world. But some things, their movement towards that end goal is visible. Some things aren't visible for us, otherwise even stones are moving. But it takes maybe 700 million years before it becomes visible, the alteration in that movement. But moment to moment, we're all moving towards that end goal. The end goal of an apple seed, for example, is to be an apple tree. And each example has its own particular end goal. And the objective in man, at end goal, is to attain to perfection. That's in general terms. But to be more specific, on a more religious level, it's to acquire and be a manifestation of Allah's divine attributes, to be Allah-li, to be God-li. And the more we manifest and reflect Allah's divine attributes, the more we are acquiring that potential of ours. But with the plant, when it wants to become when the apple seed wants to become that apple tree, all that the apple seed needs is available for it. It has real food, real sun, real light, real water, real soil. Everything is there, and it really becomes its end goal over a matter of time. With man, though, in order for man to reach that end goal, there, in contrast to the plant, man can't do it all alone. The plant can. It's already readily available for it, and it becomes an apple tree over time. With man, though, it's not a case of just staying still and everything being available for it, and then it reaches its goal. It's not as simple as that. For man, they can't do it alone, and therefore, to reach that end goal, they have to integrate into society. Because at the end of the day, man needs food, needs the local butcher, needs land, needs an architect, needs, society to have one's needs met and fulfilled in order to attain to that end goal. It has to integrate into society, not only materialistically, but even spiritually. They have to meet bad people, good people, impatient people, criminals, oppressors, so that one grows and acquires divine attributes of patience, generosity, attributes which, if they were living alone with no access to people, they would never have been nurtured, and one wouldn't have reached one's goal. But also surviving materialistically, they need to integrate into society. When man wants to integrate into society, out of necessity, man builds these mental constructs such as ownership, leadership, marriage. They're all mental constructs. Because man needs a plot of land. This dunya, this earth, for example, this planet, is an abode of conflict. It's limited. Planet Earth is limited at the end of the day. Planet Earth is limited. Otherwise the material realm of existence is infinite. But this planet is limited. And therefore land is limited. So we have a plot of land. Let's imagine everyone says this is my land. It's going to cause bedlam, chaos. So man comes, after integrating and having to integrate into society, they come and construct the mental notion of ownership. This is my land, that's your land. But it has to be conceived of mentally. If there was no conceiver, ownership wouldn't exist. Land is always there. You are always there. Man, there's always land. It's a real existence. There's always you per people. But ownership, no, it has to be constructed. When is it constructed? When you integrate into society. Why is it constructed? So you reach your end goal. To survive materialistically at least, you will have to construct the mental notion of ownership. Otherwise it will be total bedlam, chaos. And you can't go forward in your aim and that end goal. So you say, you construct the idea of ownership, and I am the owner, this is the owned, and ownership is constructed mentally. You can't point to anything called ownership in the physical realm of existence. It's not like the sun, the moon, the land, the person that you can point to. These are mental constructs. We call these i'tibarat in Arabic. Allama Tabatabai mentions it as the first chapter in his treatise on spiritual wayfaring. The question is why? That's why. We want to, inshallah, open that up to the end tomorrow. So, the same with leadership. Then man comes and constructs mentally the idea of leadership. That he's the leader and we are the led. We will follow. Because if everyone wants to be leader, then it will be total anarchy. So they come and construct leadership. It's a mental notion. Otherwise, whatever is this person, this person, this person. But to avoid that bedlam, after integrating into society and everyone saying, I am the leader, it's constructed. Or with marriage, this spouse is my spouse, not your spouse. Otherwise everyone will have a claim. So they construct the idea of marriage. Certificates, salaries, jobs, sentences, regulations, all these are i'tibarat. All these are mental constructs for man to reach that goal. So man has to integrate into society. A consequence of integrating into society is to construct these i'tibarat. And when you look closely in your lives, one is drowned and grossly infatuated in these i'tibarat. To the extent that, let's say, if they assign you leadership or assign you a certificate, which are all i'tibarat, mental constructs, you become happy. Why should you be happy? Nothing is added to you in real terms. Or when it's taken away from you, that certificate, that title, that ownership is taken away from you, become saddened. Why should you be saddened? When nothing in reality is taken away from you. It's because of that gross infatuation in these mental constructs. Okay, so here man conceives and builds these mental constructs as a result of integrating into society. Plants don't have it. They don't have, and therefore, because they have an individual life, everything is provided for them in real terms, and they reach their end goal. But for us to reach our end goal, we need society. A consequence of that is we have to assign i'tibarat, these mental constructs. Wherever there's society, there's i'tibarat. When there's no society, there's no i'tibarat. In the hereafter, there's no society, there's no social life. And in the hereafter, there's no i'tibarat either. Tomorrow we'll discuss that. And wherever there's no i'tibarat, there's no social life. This last sentence will be explained tomorrow, inshallah. When it comes to the question of man, is man a social animal or a private individual animal? We'll open that tomorrow. Okay. It's all though centered around your innate nature. You have to reach that end goal. It's all about you, the soul, that innate nature of yours. And man only deals with oneself and can't have an influence over others. Man has no effect on anything or anyone but oneself. And the reason why we think man has an influence over other entities is because of us being drowned in this concept of i'tibarat. And I want to open that up, inshallah, now. When X oppresses Y, X, by doing this act of oppression, first and foremost, they are oppressing themselves by acting in such a way. Let's say they beat or hit or any other form of oppression, they hit Y. We say Y is oppressed, and we say an act of oppression has resulted, and that X oppressed Y. But the reason we say it is because oppression is a mental construct. We're constructing the idea of oppression. Otherwise, no one is being oppressed except the doer of the action. So when X hits Y, has oppression resulted? Yes. It's a mental construct though. What is this mental construct based upon? It's based on a reality after all. They're not just mere willy-nilly constructs based on no reality. Oppression is based on a reality, but what is that reality? The reality is that the doer of the action is burning and oppressing one's soul in relation to reaching that end goal. You see, X commits an oppression to Y. Let's say X hits Y. We then call that oppression. It's a mental construct. But this mental construct, and it's bad. But why is it bad? It's because the doer of the action has oppressed one's soul. He's oppressed himself or herself. Then the question is, okay, but so why do we say that B or Y, the person, the receiver of the action, why do we say they were oppressed? Are they oppressed? No. The oppression only applies to the doer of the action. And that's why we term this mental construct of oppression. But whether Y is being oppressed or not, it all depends on the stance Y takes after that action happens. This is a very delicate point. And this is one of the reasons why being burdened in your life and facing burdens in life is the number one, or one of the number one routes to spiritual perfection and spiritual elevation. The question is, why should burdens be a source of you spiritually elevating. Why should, if I were to face a burden of whatever kind, why should that lead to my spiritual elevation? This is the question I want to try and answer in this session, because it's very important here. When X commits an act of oppression or hits someone, X has oppressed oneself. In relation to what? In relation to reaching that end goal. Any barrier to your reaching that end goal, you're oppressing yourself. The apple seed reaches the apple tree. Man's innate nature has needs. The soul has needs. In order to acquire one's perfection, which is being a manifestation of divine attributes, reflecting divine patience, divine generosity, divine forgiveness, everything. That is our goal. Now, there are certain actions that if we do, they act as an impediment and they're detrimental to that road of perfection for us. So if you unjustly hit someone, or you swear at someone, or you backbite, or you kill, or you injure, these things, these actions, are a barrier to your reaching that spiritual end goal. We come and term those actions as oppression. Oppression doesn't exist in the physical realm. It's a mental construct. But it's based on a reality. Whatever acts as an impediment to you reaching your goal is an act of oppression. Who is being oppressed when you call this act an act of oppression? The oppressor is the one who did the action. Who are they oppressing? Themselves. Is X oppressing Y also? Depends. Depends. Not necessarily. Well, actually, no. They're not oppressing Y. But Y has the potential. After X does this sin, Y has the potential to be oppressed, but it all depends on Y himself. What does it depend upon? How did Y look at this act? How did Y look at this action? If someone hit Y, if X hit Y, how is Y taking this? Does Y think X has hit him? Period? Or not? I have to go through this a bit slowly so everyone understands this exactly as I want to convey this. It's a delicate point in spiritual wayfaring, but it can be very easily misunderstood. And inshallah we can have Q&A later on this. But the practical lesson of this is very important. And one's world view and stance in life is important here. Because sometimes sorry for using A and B, X and Y interchangeably, just keeps on coming. We have two people, A and B. A steals from B. Okay? By stealing, A is oppressing himself. And he can't reach that end goal, that spiritual end goal. B's property has been taken away from him. How does B see this action? Does B think that A has taken away from him or not? If B regards what he had, owned property, ownership, if he believed he is the real owner of that, and then this has been taken away from him, if he has that kind of worldview, yes, B also has polluted oneself. He's contaminated oneself. Because ownership doesn't exist. It's a mental construct. What exists is this land, this thing, and this person. In order to avoid that bedlam after integrating into society, you've assigned ownership now. That's to fulfill your materialistic needs to survive. But there's nothing such as ownership in the real realm of existence. It's a mental construct. Why should you be saddened when someone steals your property? You see? Why should that disappoint you? Because you as you are, nothing has been taken away from you, the real essence of what your soul. So why should you allow the soul to be contaminated by the idea that they've taken my owned property? You see? And then you become saddened. Or if someone hits you, this hitting you call an act of oppression. That person who hit, yes, they have oppressed themselves. But have they oppressed or committed any form of wrongdoing to the soul of the other party? The answer is no. Unless that person who received the hitting, who received the injury, they look at the event as such that something from me has been taken away from my soul. My soul has been oppressed. I've been hurt. I've been oppressed. But I have been oppressed. If you look at it in that way, yes, you have oppressed yourself. Because oppression is a mental construct. No one other than you, no one outside you can lead your soul to be burdened. Only you can burden yourself. The way you think, the way you view life, your stance on life. If your stance is that that person did something and that something affected me, yes, you've limited yourself, you've oppressed yourself. But if your stance in life is that person cannot burden my soul, he hit me, I received an injury, but the soul isn't burdened. It was Allah's actions. It was a reality. I received an action. That action was a reality. But where is this oppressing me? Where has that come from? That's a mental construct. I received a blow. I received an injury. But who is to say that was bad? Who said that's bad? This oppression, where has that come from? I take it wholeheartedly. Yes, we call it oppression, not because I've been oppressed. What I've dealt with are these real actions in the physical realm. But that person is being oppressed, not me. So it all depends on how you look at that action. Or for example, someone oppresses another party and you're looking and you're silent in relation to that oppression and do nothing. You do nothing in the face of that oppression. That silence and doing nothing, that will corrupt yourself, your soul. That will, because you're doing nothing, you're silent to it. But when someone commits an oppression to another party and you act irrespective of the result, what happens, but that action of yours No, that's okay, and you're reaching your end goal. But sometimes silence can have that impediment in relation to you facing that end goal. Now, you look at life's burdens. Now, be it property, be it life, injury, or all the different kinds of burdens that you face, man, depending on how they look at those burdens, it has an effect on themselves. Otherwise, if they look at those burdens minus the concept and i'tibar and mental notion of it being a burden, they just look at it as an action, a real action in the real world, a real injury, a real hitting, a real whatever. If they just look at it like that, they will see it as Allah's actions, and they will grow. But if they get drowned in the i'tibarat, the mental construct, and call it that we have been oppressed, because oppression is an i'tibar too, no, they're going to be saddened. They're going to be infatuated in their worldly life. So this is something which the Quran also has verses which show this. One verse is in ahsantum li'anfusikum. When you did good for your own souls. When you forgave someone, that's not affecting that other person. You're growing yourself. It has nothing to do with the other person. When you are patient towards someone, you are growing. That person doesn't receive any benefit. It all depends how the other person replies after you do that action. But when you do good, you're doing good for your own souls. You're not doing good for souls outside you. Your action doesn't have an effect. It's not influencing those souls. Those other souls outside you, depending on how they react to your action, then they will be either growing or depressing themselves. But primarily in ahsantum li'anfusikum, you're doing good for your own selves. You see, it's very explicit here. وَإِنْ أَسَأْتُمْ فَلَهُ, and when you do bad, it's only in unity with your own souls again. When you do bad, it's only for your own souls. Your own souls are being contaminated. Your own souls are being oppressed. Your own souls are being impeded to reach that end goal. So when you do something bad, you're oppressing yourself, not someone else. But that someone else, depending on how they interpret that action, their worldview on that action, it can be good, it can be bad. But that's because they've intended a certain action. So if you do something bad, and then that person retaliates in a bad way, they've contaminated themselves. Even though it's allowed on a par with the letter of the law. If you did something good and they were inert in relation to what you did, they're not growing. But if they reply with good, they will be growing. But your good that you did, it was only for your souls to reach that spiritual end goal. It doesn't have an influence on those other people. So good and bad also are i'tibarat. Man wants to reach that end goal, that spiritual end goal. He has to integrate into society. When he integrates into society, he has to construct mentally these i'tibarat, these mental constructs. But these mental constructs that he constructs, it's based on his innate nature, and this nature reaching its potential. What is that potential? To be a manifestation of Allah's attributes. Allah is patient, we want to be patient. Allah is all forgiving, we want to be all forgiving. And here man has to the best of one's capacity, reach that. So he becomes patient, he becomes forgiving, and all those divine attributes. But when he wants to reflect them and manifest them, he's doing it for his own soul. Whether other people grow as a result, no. It all depends how other people, they interpret and act upon what they see. If they act upon it properly, they'll grow. If they act upon it improperly, they won't grow. But everyone and every action, it's in relation to one's own self, and oneself is growing. Okay. Then, another verse of the Holy Quran too, وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. No bearer of burdens will bear the burdens of others. You will never bear the burdens of other people. If you did, it was because you interpreted that bad, you thought bad, you intended bad, and then you became a bearer of your own built burdens. So here Irfan has a protocol. Whenever you face bad, we have a protocol in Irfan. And the protocol wants to make sure that you don't think you're being influenced by others, one, and that you alone are the bearer of your own built burdens. Where did these burdens come from? It depends how you conceive of life and life's hurdles. This verse is in relation to the hereafter. In the hereafter, it's you and your actions, because you are your actions. There's no social life in the hereafter, although that question we'll answer tomorrow, inshallah, in more detail. But it's all your actions. You are your actions. The hereafter, heaven and hell, is a manifestation of your actions. Those actions that were incorporated in you, whatever was incorporated in you, it's you who allow or disallow things to be incorporated within yourself. You are the director of your hereafter, and you're building it moment to moment. If someone does something, you get angry, well, that's a deficiency on your behalf. Why did you get angry? Why did you act in a violent manner? It was because you were drowned in i'tibarat. Someone stole something, you believe that this is ownership, that's an i'tibar. And then you got angry when someone stole something. You became saddened. You're contaminating yourself. Why should you be saddened when your owned property has been taken away from you, when ownership doesn't exist in the physical realm? It was an i'tibar. That which exists is you and the car, you and the book, you and the house. But in order, after integrating into society, in order to avoid bedlam and you surviving, you mentally constructed the idea of ownership. Not that you are the real owner of the house or the land. That's imaginary. That ownership is imaginary. Someone stole something. Yes, that person who stole is oppressing themselves, contaminating themselves. But why should it contaminate you? It contaminates you because you're drowned in the i'tibarat. And you think it's real. My car, my book. You become saddened when they steal your certificate. My certificate. It's all my this, my that. I did this, I did that. My family, my wife, my husband, my children. All these are i'tibarat. All these are i'tibarat, they're mental constructs. They don't exist in the physical realm. But that's it. I need to explain that, and that the explanation comes tomorrow, inshallah. But the point is, the reason why burdens are an important method in spiritual elevation is because it eliminates the i'tibarat. And when you eliminate the i'tibarat, my house, my certificate, my this, my that, I did this, I did that. Here, your road to spiritual perfection now starts. Because you've disassociated from the worldly life. Inshallah, with this, we'll speak more and continue with it tomorrow. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
Is the divine law, divine value system, is that a mental construct or is it reality?
Yes. This we'll come to, inshallah, tomorrow, but very briefly now you asked it. Since man, let's imagine before religion, since man is drowned in these i'tibarat, mental constructs. Let's say there was no religion, imagine. Man would come up with the idea of ownership, leadership, marriage and everything. Since man is drowned in this language, the Sharia speaks with man in the language of i'tibarat, do's and don'ts. But this language of i'tibarat has to be based on a reality. They're not mere willy-nilly statements based less of a reality, no. So what is that reality? Whatever it is, then Allah comes based on that reality, which helps man to reach that end goal. He comes and speaks with man in the language of i'tibarat, because it's the only language man knows of. The test, though, is that one should not suffice with the i'tibarat and reach that beyond. If they suffice with the i'tibarat, it's tantamount to sufficing with the worldly life and being oblivious to beyond the worldly life. And that's the meaning of يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ. And that we'll discuss inshallah in the future.